Okay, welcome everyone to Sunday Poetry, continuing our haiku workshop. So, I only received a few haiku for today's session. If anyone's got a last minute entry that you want to send me, you could stick it in the email right now and I'll toss it in with the rest.
Did you get mine, Dean? I sent it about a half hour ago.
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Thanks.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me just make sure I haven't missed any. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so let's look at some haiku from our friends. I'm putting more spaces between them so that we can have each one alone on the screen. Okay, so here's our first one for today. Concrete city down, blade of green grows in between, Goodyear comes to halt. Concrete city down, blade of green grows in between, Goodyear comes to halt. So talk to me about this. What's this doing for you? What do you notice? What is it? Yes.
It's very visual to me. I mean, first, concrete city. I don't think of a concrete city going down, so that at first, but then it made complete sense because I know what Goodyear is. So concrete city down, blade of green grows in between. Mm-hmm. Goodyear comes to halt. I was also at first caught off guard and I thought this is really effective. Mm-hmm. Rather than Goodyear comes to a halt, it was Goodyear comes to halt. Mm-hmm. There was something, for me, there was something really direct and definitive about, that verb. Mm-hmm. I guess it would be a verb there. So I find it very visual. It grabs me.
Mm-hmm. It is very visual. It is very, very vivid. There's a lot to see there. Good. What else? Actually, let's talk about that third line. Goodyear comes to halt, and you like that better than Goodyear comes to a halt. There is something more halting about that sound.
Almost jolting, comes to halt. It's like a jolt,
Yeah, it comes about one syllable before we would expect it. That's where we would expect and instead we get halt, and it makes the whole sentence halt. It makes the poem halt. Now, what's interesting to me here is that this one, I'm interested how many of you noticed this. This one is written in 5/7/5, right? Five syllables for the first line, 7 for the second, 5 for the third, right? And I keep telling you, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And in fact, until you get really experienced and good at this, I generally recommend don't try to write them in 575, because usually what happens is people wind up torturing the language, making the language unnatural in an attempt to make it fit in the mold, the Procrustean bed of 575. You all know that expression? It's one of my favorite expressions, the Procrustean bed. Procrustes in Greek mythology, he was the world's worst host. He would welcome people into his palace or wherever the hell it was that he lived, and he had this beautiful bed, and the bed was so beautiful that he insisted that everyone had to sleep in this bed and had to fit in the bed. So if they were too short, if they were shorter than the bed, he would put them on a rack and stretch them to fit the bed. And if they were too tall, he would, chop off their feet and keep chopping off pieces till they fit. So the 575 structure can be a Procrustean bed unless you're really, really good at this. But in this case, Lisa, I would agree with you that maybe the 5-syllable structure compelled this writer to leave out the word but it really works.
Can I?
Yes, please, Scott.
So remind me, we want to go for a specific versus a general thing.
Yeah.
To be, so this good year ends. No?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, and you're doing the right thing, which is to try it on. On. Do you see if that? I mean, everything's a trade-off. Everything's a trade-off in poetry. Everything's a trade-off in life, right? And haiku is a really good place to look at trade-offs because everything is so under the microscope that one syllable will change everything. So you can see, all right, does maybe this good year or the good year might make it more specific, but is it worth the trade-off? Is it worth spending another syllable on it? And for that matter, do we need a definite article such as the or that to make the good year singular? If we say good year, do we expect to see more than one blimp in the sky?
That's what happened to me.
You expected more than one blimp in the sky?
Oh, no. I thought that the meaning of it was not blimp, but at first I saw blimp.
I'm confused. Say,
okay,
restate whatever you're saying.
Okay, I thought the reader is saying, this good year has come to a close. But when I first said good year, I thought of blimp.
Good year, yeah, I think of blimp, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is a blimp. We're looking up in we got the concrete city, we got the green grass, and we got the blue sky. And what's nice is that it doesn't mention the sky. It doesn't have to. By mentioning the blimp, that pulls our view upward. And when you see that blimp, you automatically see the sky in which it floats.
Okay, so, I totally thought of it differently. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't know that I'm right and you're wrong, but I think I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, because you were in the sky, of course.
Yeah. I mean, Goodyear. Look, there's certain things we have to be able to, certain kind of conventions of dealing with each other as reader and writer that we have to be able to agree on. Just like it's like in the social contract, we have to all agree that when we come to a traffic light, everyone stops on the red and goes on the green.
Right.
You you get a bunch of knuckleheads who say, oh, you're interfering with my freedom, right?
Yeah.
Right. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on free dumb, with emphasis
Yeah.
on
Oh, that's a good one.
dumb.
That's a good one. I've never heard that one.
Free dumb. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we can. So I think we can. So we have to assume here. I mean, there might be, poetry tends to be multi-leveled. So there could be also a resonance, a connotation, a subtext of, okay, now my good year has come to a halt, but that would have to be secondary. The primary has to work, right? The one thing that kind of throws that in doubt, this is a little niggling thing, is that in between is written as one word, which I suspect I suspect the writer didn't realize that in between is conventionally two words. It's not one word. So when you have in between run together, then that makes the good year run together a little bit suspect.
I guess having a brand name in a haiku threw me off too.
Yeah, no, why not? Why the hell not? Folgers, right?
I had an
Chevy. Yeah.
entirely different read on this.
Uh-huh.
What makes it so interesting.
Okay. Please.
That term Goodyear, it's one word. So for me, it's a corporation. It's the Goodyear Corporation.
Yeah.
And my sense, okay, concrete city, factory, concrete city down. The blade of green grows in between. The concrete is crumbling. The blade of grass is growing in the concrete. The Goodyear factory comes to a halt. That's what I read. I mean, it's completely different.
Interesting. But that would, and again, maybe that's what the poet had in mind. But can you see why that would be less a situation for haiku? Does the factory closing down, closing for business, is that a moment of experience? No, that's a whole process.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Okay.
socioeconomic thing that's going to be going on for weeks and covered in the newspapers and so forth. Remember, it's the simplest thing in the world, and it's the hardest thing to keep bringing people's attention back to, is we're talking about a snapshot of a moment of experience, not idea, not process, not concept, not, but it's, you look around the room, click, except it's not necessarily just vision. It could be vision, hearing, it can be, if you've got an Apple phone, they've got this on the camera. They have this now, something called a live photo setting, where you get about 3 seconds of action along with your still photo. So it could be that there's a little bit of action. Hold on one second. I got to take off my earphones and take off my sweater because I'm hot.
Did you hear Portland is 114 yesterday and today?
Yeah, I was in Portland a couple days ago, but
when it got to the weekend, 114.
It's insane. They're all out here at the beach.
It's cold in Santa Monica. It's really cold in overcast in Santa Monica.
Okay, well, it's warm in this body right now. Maybe it's the coffee.
It's because you missed part of it when your earphone was out, Dean. I was saying, you were saying you're warm. I said Portland is 114 this weekend. So she was commenting that cooler here.
114?
Yes, yesterday and today both.
Climate change? What climate change?
Yeah, no, I've talked to people who live up there, and it's not the Portland not the Oregon it used to be.
Oh my God. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, okay. Anyway, let me just say the one word that I'm confused about in this one is down. I don't understand what that means there. I'm not getting a clarity on the situation. I don't remember who wrote this one. If the person wants to remain anonymous, that's always fine. But if they want to step forward and clarify, that would also be good.
I wrote that one, but I think I misspelled down. I wanted to show the time of the day. The sundown, like sunset.
Ah,
I think
okay.
I,
Right. Okay. So the reader, I think, is never going to get that from that word.
I know.
Yeah. So this is a place where I think trying the Procrustean bed of the 5-7-5 structure worked against you. You know, the simple thing here would be, you know, concrete city, sundown.
Or dusk.
Dusk is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer dusk than the sun.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Lulu, let me ask you this. Within the whole concrete city, in this one moment, this one snapshot, we can't see the whole city. What do we actually see of the city? What do we actually see that tells us we're in a concrete city?
I grew up in New York, so whatever I saw was concrete.
Yeah.
Not much of a trees or green grass.
Right. Okay. But that what you just described was a process of like 18 years growing up. We need 1 second.
Well,
So it would be an interesting exercise for you to, it may or may not work, because this is working pretty nicely the way it is, but to try to see, okay, what if it's, you know, this wall or this side of the factory or this something to make that concrete city more specific. Might not work.
Skyscraper.
But we always play with these. Okay, let's move on. Right hand behind head, neck turned left. Okay, this is a hyphen, and I am going to guess that what was meant was a dash, not a hyphen. Okay, I'm going to take that editorial prerogative. Right hand behind head, neck turned left, eyes right, breath. Right hand behind head. I feel like I want to do this. Right hand behind head, neck
Yeah,
turned.
it's a yoga pose. I don't know who wrote it, but
neck turned left, eyes right, breath. Which pose is that, Lisa?
Anantasana.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But it's not my haiku.
Yeah.
And
right.
Maybe that's not what they meant, but.
Okay. But what are we getting from this? I mean, that's what you're getting from this as a yogi.
Well, just like you said, Dean, it makes you want to do it.
Yeah, right. Right, which is, yeah, we're moving people with our words. That's good. It's very specific, right? Very concrete, very much right in a moment, right? This is not a process over 18 years or 1 year, 1 month. It's a process of a couple of seconds, which is perfect. It's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Is there anything you feel like you'd want to play with or try or ask the poet about if you could?
It's kind of odd. There's so much action in it.
Mm.
It's like a description, which a lot of what we do is like a description.
Right.
But it seems like there's so much action in it that I kind of don't really have a sense of what I'm not sure how to explain it.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you do this asana, we could see that if we do this asana, And then we have the breath at the end. For us as the yogi, not necessarily as the reader, but as a yogi who follows these steps, we're going to experience some silence. We're going to experience some kensho there with the breath at the end. And very clearly, you know, the third line, that's the kensho moment here in this one. So that works well, that structure is there. But it does kind of, and again, this is because everything is under such a microscope, under such a harsh light in haiku. Until we get to that third line, it does feel a little busy, a little bit busy with verbiage. I'm not sure how to make it quieter and still convey what needs to be conveyed here. You know, maybe you'd again, as a trade-off, maybe you'd consider sacrificing the whole first line
Left.
and make it neck left, eyes right, breath. Or, see, I'm just playing here. Let's just play with this for a minute. Neck left, eyes right, breath. You know what I keep wanting to do? I want to change this to a verb. Breathe.
Yeah, I did too. I want to.
Breathe. Now, what happens when we change it from breath to breathe?
It gives it life.
It does. It comes
Breathes
alive.
life into it.
Ironically, the word breathe breathes life into it. For one thing, we've gone from a noun to a verb, right? So now we have action. Now we're doing. Also, always use your ears, right? Listen to the sound. The difference in sound between breath and breathe. It's the difference between and e, right? Is kind of a dull sound. E is actually it's the brightest vowel sound in our language. So that brightens the thing up. It animates it. It brings it to life. So maybe we'd want to play that one. Okay, let's try another. Scowling at that scowling face in the mirror. Scowling at that scowling face in the mirror. Okay, what are you getting there? Okay, Center Sisters, you're laughing. Why?
I really like this one. It's great. It's home. It's the back to your early teaching of the X on the spider's stomach. I'm kind of a big fan of people who are scowling or really scowling at themselves. I feel like the kensho is strong in this one.
Yeah.
That's a really great image.
Yeah. Good snapshot.
I mean, it's very, and it's familiar. Is this something we've all done? Something as, perhaps as we get a little more advanced in years, we'll look at ourselves and we go, what's going on there? And there's that vicious cycle. The more you scowl at this thing you see in the mirror, the worse it looks. The worse it looks, the more you scowl at it. Right?
Yeah.
And I think the word "that" is really important in here.
Yes.
Scowling.
Yeah. Tell me about the word "that." Because this came up before with the Goodyear, this the versus that versus why is that? And I think you're right. I think that is exactly the right word here.
It seems to hold a lot of emotion.
I'm sorry, say it again.
It seems to hold a lot of emotion, just that pronoun.
Yeah, there's that face.
Yeah.
You know what it implies is, we've seen this thing before. Right?
Familiarity, yeah.
That face. Here it is again. Every time I look, that same freaking face, right?
Oh, this is good. This is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Who did that one?
I did.
Yeah, who did? You
Yeah.
did? Nice.
You
I
did
can
that
see it. I
one.
can see it, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, now also as a reader, I initially thought for some reason like a dresser mirror. I think it's interesting where the mirror is. Like if I'm watching this person do it, like I can definitely see it in like a car rear view mirror. You know, you see like everybody's bathroom.
Yeah, like a mirror you look at.
Can I ask where
That's
you
what I
were
thought.
when you thought of it? Were you in the, where did you
I
have that scowling face?
I was in the bathroom.
Oh,
But here's the thing. No, and again, it's very good that you bring this up because, as I say, these are the things we should always play with, always consider. As I was composing this thing in my head and playing around with it, I tried to include in the bathroom mirror, in the medicine cabinet, so forth. And because, I like that would be more specific, but my feeling was it wound up getting too long. It was not worth the trade-off. It was not worth spending the syllables on it. And also, especially once I got to that, then I realized, oh, okay, I could see it in the bathroom mirror. I could see it in the dresser mirror. I could see it in the car rear view mirror, and it's still that. You can change the mirror, you can't change the freaking face. It's still that face. So I decided to find. Oh, the other thing was it started off as frowning at that frowning face in the mirror, and I kind of like frowning. Frowning is a little bit plainer. It's a slightly more plain, ordinary word, which, we always like to go for plain in haiku. But scowling says it better, I think. That scowling is more that pensive, that,
There's something scruffy about scowling.
Yeah, well, it's got the same initial sound, the same SC. The sk, scruffy and scourge and, scat, get out of here. Some echoes of that. And it seems more specific, like a frown could be because you're sad. Whereas scowl, you disapprove. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of dharma in this one. That there is that, as you say, Kristen, it's the Zen, the spider story. It's your in the very act of having a problem with the thing that's going on, you are the thing that's going on. And life becomes a mirror for seeing that, and our dharma practice becomes a mirror for seeing that process. And then you catch yourself doing it, then you have a good laugh at yourself. And then suddenly there's a nice happy face in the mirror. Okay, moving on. The shoreline fades, a wall of fog, walking blind, wet and warm. The shoreline fades, a wall of fog, walking blind, wet and warm. Okay, what have we here?
I think they did a good job. I tried to do something like this a while ago, and it was really hard for me to describe that blindness in the fog. I think it was just, this is really simple. It's really nice that it's just blind. You're just walking blind. I think it's pretty descriptive. I just because I'm around fog a lot, it makes sense to me. I feel the place. I feel it too. You can feel the wet and warm. Nice descriptive pieces.
Yeah. It's very evocative. It's very concrete, isn't it? I would say that, compared with um, uh, what we were getting a few weeks ago in general, the haiku we're getting here now are much more concrete, more in the moment, more more of that quality of kensho to them. So I feel like we're making some progress here. This is nice. And the situation here, right, of walking in fog, it's really it's very juicy haiku material, right? It's a good choice of material. Have we talked about the word yugen in this group? Okay, let me. Okay, so this word yugen, that's a Japanese word, which is, you hear a lot in connection with haiku. It's kind of untranslatable. There's not really an English equivalent. But this haiku has a lot of yugen in it. It's described, it's kind of somewhere in the neighborhood of wistful, melancholy, nostalgic. If you look it up, you'll see classical descriptions, and they're all examples. They don't try to define it. They describe it by example. They'll say yugen is when you wander through, through the field. You wander farther and farther from home with no idea of ever coming back. Or yugen is when you watch the wild geese disappearing, over the western horizon at dusk. Things like that, right? We did mention a couple of sessions back that traditional haiku you always can tell what season they're written for. In modern haiku, it's sometimes the case, not always the case. In traditional haiku, there's spring haiku, summer haiku, fall haiku, winter haiku, and there's always at least one word that tips us off what the season is. And I mentioned that of all the 4 seasons, the favorite season for haiku writers is, take a guess.
Fall, right? You did.
Yes,
fall.
yes, it's fall. It's
Really
fall.
bad memory.
Right, there you go. You cheated, you remembered. Fall is the favorite haiku season, because one way we can say why is that's because that's the season that is most saturated with yugen, right? It's when we've had the glory of the summer. We've had, I look out in my garden here and all the bougainvillea and the other flowers whose names I don't know are also nice and lush now. And because it's summer, and soon it'll be fall, and that'll all be dying, right? I mean, here in Santa Monica, we don't get, the temperature doesn't change much, but but in, if you were in Japan or if you were on the East Coast of the US, you'd be going from hot sunny weather to more, rainy weather, and starting to turn cold, and you're starting to get the brown leaves on the ground. So there is that feeling of yugen in this one. What are some things that we would, if we were the poet here, we would consider fiddling around with? Things that we would consider tweaking?
Well, what did we talk about last time? Where can you have a wall of fog? This is what I was struggling with, right? Yeah, when I was trying to think, because it always reminded me of a wall, but I was like, but that's not what fog does. Fog doesn't wall.
Right. Right. So first of all, that's not literal. It's a figure of speech. It's a metaphor. And there's no absolute rule on this, but in general, haiku, you want to be as literal as possible. In general, haiku throws away all of those figures of speech, that Western poetry deals with, that you learned about in high school, right? Metaphor, simile, personification, hyperbole, all of that gets thrown out. Like, just give us simple, straightforward, literal, plain talk. In Western poetry, you say, my love is like a red, red rose, right? That's simile. Or you say, my love is a red, red rose. That's metaphor. In haiku, my love is a girl, right? Or a boy. And you have to make it evocative in different ways. You can't rely on those figures of speech. So, yeah, so a wall of fog is kind of suspect. What would be a different way? Let's play with it.
Simply thick fog.
Thick fog. Okay, let's try that. Thick fog.
I would put wet and warm after the fog.
Thick fog, wet and warm, because it's that seems more to apply to the fog.
Well, so this is my haiku,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's better than it was initially, because I had a shoreline fades swallowed by a wall of fog.
Oh,
But swallowed is get rid of that.
right. And not only is that another metaphor, but then you had what's known as a mixed metaphor, swallowed by a wall. So even on the level of metaphor, by the way, I have a dear friend who is actually a former student of mine from the Pingree School, he's a professional writer, journalist. He's an author, does investigative journalism, and he blames me for his career because I told him when he was a sophomore in high school that he should be a writer. So I have to take the blame for that. And we've had this thing going on for several years, which is when I'm reading the news, I'm reading the New York Times or whatever, the Washington Post or something. And when I run into mixed metaphors, and they can be hilarious. Mixed metaphor is always considered a no-no in any kind of writing. And so I send them, I copy and paste them into an email, and I send them to my friend Michael. And he's been telling me for years that I should make a book out of them, and get an illustrator to make pictures of the wall of fog swallowing things or whatever it would be.
That would be a great kid's book, honestly. Yeah.
Wait, Kristen, say that again.
Oh yeah, sorry, Lisa. I said that would be a great kid's book. Actually, that would be a really cool. I love that idea actually with the illustrations.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Well, I've got them all in my email. Maybe I should do that sometime.
The back page of Consumer Reports often does that, signs or things that make absolutely no sense. But what I wanted to say about this haiku, to Lulu's point, is, and thank you, Lulu, it's an interesting suggestion. When the fog is that, if I just read it walking blind, that's kind of scary. At least to me, that feels scary.
Yeah.
Whereas
you're walking blind, that's dangerous.
But when the fog is that thick, you don't really see, but it's wet and it can be warm. And the Kensho for me came with the warm. So there's something, when it's really humid, it's not necessarily cold. It's like a marine layer here. And so you can walk, but feel kind of comfortable because it's warm.
Right.
So it's interesting fitting the wet and the warm with the fog as opposed to the person experiencing it, feeling the wet and the warmth.
Right. Okay. So here's what I keep finding myself wanting to do. Um,
Hmm. Mm.
this is what I keep wanting to do. I'm not saying this is the right solution,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but let's go one word at a time. Why did I take out thick?
I mean, naturally, when you think of fog, you do kind of have that thickness. It might just be redundant.
Might be, but is there something else still in the poem here that tells us that the fog is thick?
Blind.
Yeah, I'm walking blind.
And the
And also,
shoreline fading.
and the fact that the shoreline is faded. You already said it twice. Why say it a third time?
Yep, yep.
Right? It's if you can convey the experience without having to say the word, that's magical. Then you have magically made a scene appear in the reader's mind and they don't know how you did it. Right? Now, again, this is next we get again to one of these trade-off situations because you like the idea, and I see why you like the idea of having the warm in there. There's the kind of paradox. But first, let me mention, since you said the Kensho happens with the fog, so we want to try having the fog in the third line. So we could try putting warm back in.
I have a question about warm.
Yeah.
I've grown up in Southern California. I lived here my whole life. I've never felt warm fog in my life. It's always cool.
Right. Does warm fog happen,
Yes,
Lisa? Yeah.
yes. I mean, this morning it was 114 in Portland. I'm 2 hours west of Portland. So our marine layer is very humid, so thick.
Yeah. I mean, it's humid
fog.
here. It's humid here in Santa Monica. We're having our classic June gloom here. But when it happens, it's not warm.
Yeah, here when the sun is shining, but the fog is really thick. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a really interesting experience. People fade in the fog. But it's warm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Interesting.
Boy, I can remember one day when I was growing up here in the San Fernando Valley in Woodland Hills. And I was maybe 8, 9 years old. And we had I remember standing on the street in front of my house, Calabash Street in Woodland Hills. And the fog was so thick that you could not see 3, 4 feet in front of you.
right.
And I and a couple of friends, we were going, it was crazy. It was magical. It was Twilight Zone stuff. Your friend would walk 4 or 5 feet away and they were invisible. People coming in and out of that. It was wild.
That's here a lot.
Yeah, really, really. Yeah. Yeah. So the word blind is, we have that's completely justified and needed here and effective. Yeah. So again, let me stress that what we're doing here, what's important is not necessarily to arrive at a definitive conclusion and say, okay, this is the best form or this is the best form, but to get a feel for the process, get a feel for the trade-offs. I mean, we might all go to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning and have some completely other idea about how to rewrite some of these.
I actually like the middle one now.
Was there a reason not to try walking blind right at the beginning? For some reason, I keep getting pulled towards that. It feels like you just have that jolting experience of being blind right at the start. I like that one.
Well, let's try that.
I think the issue is then maybe the shoreline faded. It turns it into maybe like a past tense thing. How could you tell the shoreline is fades?
Well, here would be another way to do it would be something like,
Reverse those.
walking blind in the warm fog, the shoreline fades. Now, the fading of the shoreline is, I mean, there's a lot of Yugen going on there, right? In a way, by the way, just to point it out, because everything's under the microscope, it's not 100% literal. The shoreline has not really faded. What's happened is the fog has covered it, right? But that is such a, the figure of speech there is so common and so kind of light, you know, unlike a wall or swallow or something, that we don't even notice it, and it's probably not worth the trade-off to try to change it. And fading, anything fading is so full of Yugen. You know, this is what happens in meditation. The outer world fades, right? We sink into the warm fog of beingness. We sink into the warm fog of our own awareness, and the clear, distinct shoreline of the material world out here fades. So interesting. I didn't see that before in the poem, but when we sequence it this way, now I see that in the poem.
Yeah.
So again, this is the process, and it's really fascinating and fun, and right, isn't it kind of exciting and enriching in a way along a particular kind of dimension that I don't know what else works that way.
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to feel, because to be honest now, we've made it so I don't quite feel that same northwest warm, wet on my skin. Because before I was reading wet as my skin was wet. Right. And now we've gotten rid of that and kind of let it be with the fog. But yeah, now it's almost a whole new feeling in this one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different animal now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool.
So it's an exercise in seeing what you've got and appreciating what you've got, and then not being attached to it. Because maybe, it's exactly the thing that as a meditation teacher, I tell people, and they say, oh, but I had this wonderful, blissful meditation 5 months ago. And I really, so now when I sit down, I really want to get back to that place. And of course, the moment they're doing that, they're exerting effort, and that, prevents any kind of natural settling down from happening. But, I have to tell them, you're going to go, that's just a memory now. That's just a thought. You're going to go on to new things new unfoldings of consciousness that you haven't imagined. I'm not sure if I've told this story. We've got 1 minute, so I'm going to make this a 1 minute story, and then we'll go. Maggie, my first wife, was an artist. And for a while, she led an art class in a, what do you call it, nursing home, convalescent home, or no, maybe it wasn't that. It was something with a lot of older people, senior citizens. And she got a lot of people there who said, oh, they never painted before, and they were really nervous. They couldn't, didn't think they could paint a straight line, which of course, no one can paint a straight line. And she, in her very gentle, encouraging, jolly way, would walk them through some kind of exercise, and they would wind up making a little picture and being really delighted with themselves. Wow, look, I made this thing. I didn't think I could make it. And then, that would be near the end of the session. And she would say, okay, now take that piece of paper, crumple it up, throw it away. And they go, ah! So that's the spirit. Create, destroy, keep going. Don't get attached. Okay? Good. Thanks, folks. This has been been lovely as always. So everyone, take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Jean.
May all beings be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great haiku
Thank
today.
you.